Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Happy to be here. I wish we didn't have to be for Julian Assange's sake, but I'm really glad to be able to all come together and show support and solidarity again.
Yeah, well, we got to keep the pressure up because otherwise they may well do something nasty. Yes, if we don't keep speaking up. I don't know how this is all going to end. I don't know how it gets resolved. I was just explaining about British politics, and Theresa May is not in a position where she can do anything draconian because she would lose support with the British public. And the more people that protest and speak up in Britain, the better. I mean, the fact that people are going outside the embassy every week now with banners and stuff has got to help because if they did kick him out of the embassy, that would be over the papers. So there would be bad publicity over it. And she just wants to forget about him. She basically prefer to not mention him at all, basically.
Absolutely. I think it's always been inspiring. The group of people that have been showing solidarity outside the embassy on the ground for years and years, but especially in the 6 months that he's been gagged and silenced. It's been incredible to see the massive amount of not only the long-term activists, but like Ecuadorian citizens and all sorts of people coming together outside the embassy to show their support. I know some people have actually like flown from the US just to go to London and stand in front of the embassy. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
But I was actually wondering if you could, I just had a question because I know that you've been so, misrepresented by the inaccurate kind of mainstream press. And I just wanted to ask you kind of if that gave you any more like, if that gave you a heightened appreciation for the accuracy in journalism that WikiLeaks has, or if that altered the way you viewed WikiLeaks at all. I was just kind of curious because I know that the media obviously, portrayed you as a Russian bot when you clearly are not. So it's a unique, it must be.
I don't know how much it did affect me like that because I already knew that the whole of the mainstream media lies all the time. Yeah. And that WikiLeaks, all the stuff that WikiLeaks has released has proven to be the truth. So I already knew that. I mean, it did shake me up a bit about how far they would go to attack an ordinary person. I mean, I'm nobody. I'm not a journalist. I haven't got a column in the paper. I run a little old Twitter account and I got a blog, and that's it. But they went after me. But I mean, the Atlantic Council, who produced this stupid thing that said I was a Russian bot, are so incompetent. They couldn't even pick up somebody that might be a Russian bot. Because, I mean, I've been on Twitter since 2011 and gradually building up a following. And I've been posting against the neocon wars since 2002, on other sites as well. So it's patently obvious that I wasn't a Russian bot and I was against the neocons. So, you've got to be totally incompetent to think otherwise. But that's
absolutely
how incompetent they are. But it's also a good way of showing other people about how much the mainstream media lie. Because if they could just parrot that I'm a Russian bot, and I'm obviously not, well, what else are they lying about? So that's another way of keeping people up.
Yeah, and I think the reason I wanted to ask you about that was because I think, these vigils have done such a great job talking about the value of WikiLeaks, but I think if we, taking your experience into account, it really heightens that. And it's not just that WikiLeaks has this, perfect record for so many years. It's also the degree to which the mainstream media and the legacy press is so inaccurate, and not just in an incompetent way, but in a way that is kind of, pushing propaganda and spin and narratives. And that's the complete opposite of what WikiLeaks does. So I think that, WikiLeaks doesn't exist in a vacuum. And so that context, I think, really heightens how valuable and unique they are. So that's why I wanted to ask about your experience being completely misrepresented in the press.
Well, I mean, WikiLeaks woke up loads and loads more people. When they started publishing in 2010 and all the Iraq dossier thing came out, and the helicopter gunship, they woke up millions of people around the world about how much the US government and their close allies lie. The American government, the UK government, the Australian government, the New Zealand government, the Canadian government, the EU, how much they lie about all these things. So, I mean, we've got to use these things to show how much they lie. I mean, we also need to push out the message, because the smears that are going on against Assange is still that he's a rapist and he was charged with rape and whatever. And there was nothing like that. Then 2 women in Sweden who he had sexual relations with consensually then found out about each other and went to the police and made a complaint because they were upset that he slept with more than one woman while he was in Sweden.
I think from what I understand, I believe that what they did, they actually didn't even make a complaint. Like they were not intending to have him arrested or anything. From what I've read, they simply wanted him to be forced to take an STD test or something. And then the police kind of pressured them. Yeah, it pressured them into pushing charges or, airing a complaint.
Yeah.
So totally ridiculous.
But I mean, all that is pushed. Those lies are pushed. I mean, I don't know what it's like elsewhere, but those lies are pushed in the UK and the American press all the time still. And loads of people still believed it. I mean, it's like when they were pushing all the Iraq lies in 2002, 70% of people still thought Saddam Hussein had something to do with 9/11 5 years after the event, when it was patently obvious he didn't have anything to do with it. But that's what they rely on. They just keep repeating the lie, keep repeating the lie, keep repeating the lie. And people just believe it because it's been bashed into their brain. They don't think.
Absolutely. And I think that you can really see the difference, though, that it's made to have not only WikiLeaks, but independent media, independent journalism now with this, kind of Russiagate issue and other issues, whether it's Syria, whatever issue it is, that can really question those narratives. Because in 2003 and in 2002, VIPs, Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, did stand up and say, we question this intelligence, but nobody could hear them. Like, nobody really got that message because there was no vehicle to get it out. So thank God that we have what we have now.
Yes. Yeah, the voices in 2002 are much, much less than they are now. Yes.
Yeah, and I think just as far as my experience as an independent journalist myself, it's kind of like the opposite side of the field from your experience being maligned by the legacy press. But I also really value WikiLeaks because their accuracy was what inspired me and my colleagues to kind of found Disobedient Media, and the fact that they were providing evidence that independent journalists could use to then write accurate stories to the best of our ability. So without WikiLeaks, we really couldn't exist as a little small independent outlet.
Well, we've got to use everything like that we can. We've got to use the lies. I mean, the articles in Disobedient Media that go through and debunk all the Russian hacking stuff and how the DNC rigged the primaries and all that, and the DNC lawsuit, all the stuff that they're lying about. The DNC are covering up that they lost the election because they picked a terrible candidate. That's why they lost the bloody election. She's
absolutely
corrupt. She armed Al Qaeda, and she wanted to implement TPP, which is a total job losing program, and would transfer power to major corporations and away from the people.
She destroyed Libya. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Yeah.
So that's why she lost. It didn't have anything to do with Russia. The Bernie Sanders supporters in America didn't need any emails to tell them the primaries were all being rigged by Hillary Clinton DNC. They saw it every week in all the primaries that were going on. Well, they didn't need an email to tell them they were rigging it against Sanders. They saw it. So the fact that, I don't know how many million of Bernie Sanders supporters stayed away from the election, but Hillary Clinton lost the election because she got 4 million votes and Barack Obama in 2012. She got 4 million votes. So Trump got about the same number of votes as Romney got in 2012. There wasn't a lot of difference. And Hillary Clinton got 4 million votes less than Obama got in 2012. So why did she get 4 million fewer votes? well, there's 2 or 4 million Bernie Sanders supporters stayed away. A load of people didn't like her. A load of people knew she was corrupt. A load of people knew she was a war criminal and destroyed Libya and whatever else. And she was totally consider herself totally above the law with all that email server that was illegal to use on government business. Loads of stuff. And you know, TPP, she supported TPP. But the key states that she lost were all in the Rust Belt, in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And all those 3 states were totally devastated by NAFTA. And she was going to screw them some more with TPP. So it's not surprising that those people, it didn't take many people to switch over, you know, 3% swing or something, then she loses the state.
Especially, yeah, in a country where not everyone votes and you're not obligated to vote legally, like in, you know, other countries like Australia, for example, that makes such a huge difference because you already have a limited pool of voters anyway who are engaging with that. So,
yeah, only 60% of Americans vote.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, so I mean, you need to keep pushing out what you're doing on Disobedient Media about the DNC lawsuit and about debunking all the DNC hacking. It was an insider leak and whatever. Keep pushing out the message because all these different things. I mean, the big thing in the UK is all this Skripal poisoning, which is a total hoax. So you've got to push that because it's so obvious it's a total hoax. And the government and the media are lying about that. I mean, there's so many holes. Their poison was smeared on their front door handle by Russians that walked up a suburban street at noon on a Sunday when everybody's out going to the supermarket or gone to church and coming back or whatever. You know, the worst possible time to carry out an assassination would be noon on a Sunday, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I've really been enjoying following Craig Murray's coverage of that. And him continuously, you know, writing his articles and asking questions about that narrative and others. It's been fascinating to see it evolve.
I know, but I mean, how anybody can believe this pile of junk is just beyond me because, you know, it's just totally ridiculous. Yeah, these two Russian assassins, they purposely went window shopping and get their faces on cameras, and they wandered up a suburban cul-de-sac where apparently this estate that Skripal lives, they chose that for him because there's a lot of retired police officers there.
Wow, that's incredible.
Police officers are known to be quite security conscious and have CCTV cameras on their doors poking out on the sidewalk or the pavement to see who's walking by or might be burglarizing their house or something. If they did actually walk up this street, there's bound to be half a dozen cameras that would have seen it, but there's no evidence. So they didn't walk up that street at broad daylight at noon, but, you know, on a Sunday.
Exactly. And that's that type of, I guess, you know, total, I wouldn't say fabrication, but the spinning of narratives. That's a great example of like a current example of that. And I think that those types of you know, manipulations, deceptions, and propaganda are, to me, you know, as I said, as an independent journalist, that makes me value WikiLeaks so much more. Like if we lived in a world where we had WikiLeaks, but we, you know, had even a halfway honest, or even if we had a few establishment outlets that were really doing their job as journalists and attempting to be accurate, trying their best to put out accurate stories, I don't think that, you know, it wouldn't be the same world that we're in now, where it is so important to support WikiLeaks because they are the only, you know, major publisher that is putting out 100% accurate material. So every single time we speak about these narratives, it just heightens the
game, haven't they? I mean, all of the mainstream media. I mean, people who just read the mainstream media haven't heard of Greg Murray's blog, or I haven't heard of Disobedient Media, and I haven't heard of Consortium News, and anywhere else that you can get the real facts, or written by honest people. I mean, people like Ray McGovern, you know, who spent 30 years in the CIA and became head of the Russian desk. He knows something about the Russians, and he says it's a load of junk. You know, so do you want to believe somebody who's getting bribed to tell lies, or Ray McGovern, who who was a serious Russian analyst during the end of the Cold War, and he says it's a pile of junk. Who are you going to believe?
Exactly. And I think that very recently, I believe it was Rafael Correa, the previous president of Ecuador, he tweeted out a Jimmy Dore video about Julian Assange being sold out by the US government. And I think for me, that was a moment where the light switch went on, and just realizing how much influence, how much of an audience, and how influential independent media really has become. The establishment media would never admit that, but you can tell that that is what is fueling some of the attacks against people like yourself, who are really, influencers on social media, or, people like Jimmy Dore, et cetera, Caitlin Johnstone, people that are giving, accurate takes on the truth, accurate takes on, talking about the manipulation of media narratives.
The manipulation, the propaganda, and the lies.
Yeah.
The blatant, outrageous lies that they tell. And then concentrating on specific examples where you can demonstrate, well, this is a flat-out lie.
Exactly.
This isn't a mistake. This isn't some sort of, oh, I've taken the wrong angle on this. You're flat-out deliberately lying on this. Right, where you can get, and there's plenty of examples, and Caitlin Johnson puts out on her blog, doesn't she? I mean, some of them are sort of psychological and philosophical articles, aren't they? But every other one, or every third one, is something specific where the mainstream media have lied about something.
One of my favorite ones favorite narratives that Caitlin debunked was the little Syrian girl who was touring, like going on CNN, tweeting, who was supposedly this little Syrian girl who wanted, to be, what basically was trying to be, it was using her to try to get us to have an excuse to invade Syria, like openly, as opposed to the way that we're supporting, quote, moderate rebels right now. But, she did a fantastic job debunking that. So, I mean, without her doing that,
MI6 or CIA operation run out of Turkey or something. Yeah,
exactly. Incredible.
And all CNN put her on, 24/7, don't they? Oh, this poor little Syrian girl who speaks perfect English and speaks like a 23-year-old PhD graduate or something.
Yeah, someone international relations degree. Yeah.
And she's highly believable. Yes.
Absolutely. But see, that's the thing. If Caitlin hadn't been around to debunk that narrative, who knows what would have happened? If nobody stands up and points it out. Yeah.
Well, that's what we got to keep doing. We got to keep pushing the truth. That's why they don't want to let Assange out, isn't it? Because he has got a voice. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of followers he's got on Twitter. But as soon as Assange says something, when he did have the internet 6 months or a year ago, whenever he said something, then that got broadcast around the world, didn't it? The whole world. I mean, it wasn't just UK or Australia or anything. It went all around Europe, all America, Canada, South America, everywhere. So that's why they don't want him to have any communication, isn't it? Because he has got a voice and he reaches millions of people. When he says something, it's then, I mean, it's not just his Twitter account that says it. Then, your site will repeat it, and Consortium News will repeat it, and Anti-War will repeat it, and RT will repeat it, won't they? So, it then reaches millions of people.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I think is a huge shame about Assange losing access to his communications with the outside world, in addition to the fact that it's, a form of torture, in addition to the fact that it's so horrendous for him as a human being. I, as a journalist, miss the issues that he would bring up, not only, his take on narratives that were happening and that were, being given attention in establishment press, but also especially the issues that he would bring up out of nowhere that maybe people would never have thought to look into, like the Catalonian, the Catalonian independence movement. I thought that was incredible that he brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's really good at asking pertinent questions about why are they doing this, who is behind it, and all that sort of stuff. Of course, the mainstream media are never going to mention why something is that. happening. You know, why is all the EU on the side of the Madrid government and not on the side of Catalonia then? Oh, well, because of whatever. Right? But the mainstream media are never going to do that because they're on the side of Madrid, so they're going to push the Madrid side. So I mean, the whole media is total propaganda bullshit. They push one narrative and one angle, and nobody else can get a word in edgeways. No dissenting opinion are allowed. And that's why they hate Assange, because he was a dissenting opinion on it.
Absolutely. And the fact that we not only don't get to hear his opinion on these propaganda narratives that you mentioned, but that we also don't get to hear about the issues that he would bring up out of nowhere that maybe nobody was looking at. It's such a huge loss. And I know there's been so many times over the last 6 months that I've seen people post something on Twitter or social media in general where they say something to the effect of, I really wish we could see Assange's opinion on this issue, or I really wish we could hear his take on that issue or that event.
Yeah.
So
on the Syria war, these false flag chemical weapons attacks, or the Skripal poisoning, or the latest kicking the Russian diplomats out, or whatever else it might be in the news that they're making up total lies and bullshit. You know, the UK
absolutely.
Government, I mean, I know there's the other governments are terrible and obnoxious and whatever, but the UK government really does take some beating with the government it's got now. I know the Australian government's pretty bad. I don't know about New Zealand, but the UK government is really bad.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on the legal proceedings, like at the very beginning of this year, when the UK court basically denied Julian Assange the ability? Well, they denied dropping the bail charge, like the warrant for his arrest based on that. Yeah. And did you have any thought on the sort of corruption around that and the ridiculousness of it?
Well,
from, you know,
Craig Murray wrote quite a good blog article about it. The judge that was in charge of the case was totally compromised, had loads of conflicts of interest, and there was some connection to arms companies, or I can't remember what the connections was, but I mean, he was obviously a totally establishment judge picked for the purpose, wasn't he, by the UK government to give whatever ruling the UK government wanted. But then he went into his history and his connections with the intelligence services or the arms companies or corporations. I can't remember what dubious stuff that him or his family were connected with and made money out of. Right, but Craig Murray did. I think it was Craig Murray that wrote it, but he went into this judge's history. It was terrible. This judge is pro-war, and his family makes loads of money out of war, and he doesn't want to let Assange out. Oh, I wonder what that is.
Of course, and completely ignored the findings of not only the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention, but also the medical reports and also, you know, everything to do with the case itself. I mean, it was just such a farce, really.
Well, they ignore anything that they don't like, don't they? they just ignore it. Yeah. That's what they mainly do, is they propagate anything they don't like. They just don't mention, do they? They hide. They cover it up. We don't want to hide this. Oh, the UN has 3 times now said that it's illegal arbitrary detention. Oh, we're not going to mention that. Don't mention the war.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think it was the magistrate tried to kind of play off as if the working group was some sort of like non-authoritative body when, you know, it's clearly an important ruling that they made. So yeah, I mean, just the outright illegality of what the UK court system has done to Assange is just mind-blowing. Much less the silencing now by Ecuador.
The UK government couldn't care less about any international law, any international treaties, any normal modes of behaviour, whatever. I mean, all this bullshit they keep spouting off, don't they? The international rules-based international order. You have the international community. Oh, what does that mean? Oh, well, when it suits us, we will go along with the UN resolution, and when it doesn't, we'll completely ignore it and go and invade Iraq.
Absolutely, it's ridiculous.
There was a good thing that's just come out in a High Court case in London in the last week. Some tribunal case where they were going into MI5, and they admitted, they produced documents in a high court tribunal, like the highest court apart from the Supreme Court in the UK. Well, they went to MI5 is totally above the law, can do whatever the hell they like. They can murder, torture, do sexual abuse, anything. And they won't. Nobody will get in trouble over it.
And they can even do that on British soil, right? I think I read about that. Yeah,
on British soil. So they were talking about Northern Ireland, but there's plenty of other places they could do it, like the Skirtle poisoning, for example.
Of course. No, that's incredible.
So they're going to ignore any law that they don't like about Assange, aren't they? If they're going to murder people in Northern Ireland, they have no qualms whatever about opposing arbitrary detention. Breaking UN findings that say he's arbitrarily detained and should be released. They're going to ignore it.
Absolutely, it's ridiculous.
There's no rule of law in the UK, not for the political insiders, not for the political class and their minions and the oligarchs and the big banks. Is it? All the money classes, the oligarchs. When did you last see an oligarch go to jail?
Exactly.
When did you see a chief executive of a major bank go to jail for money laundering or mortgage fraud or whatever?
Never. No, in fact, the ones that really do commit the biggest crimes are the ones that were too big to fail and got the bank bailouts from the taxpayer. It was incredible.
And then they were back earning their $200 million bonuses, weren't they, in a couple of years' time?
The golden parachutes, for sure.
Big punishment, big pun. Oh, we had to forego our bonus 1 year after we'd broken the law repeatedly and blatantly in multi-billion fraud for 10 years. We had to pay back one of my 15 years bonus. I didn't have to pay anything back. I had to forego 1 year, didn't I, to quieten public opinion down for it. But then 2 years' time, we just doubled my bonus, so I got it back again.
It's just insane. And I mean, and what I remember from that specific situation is that, it wasn't like one side, left versus right, was supporting the bank bailouts. Both the Republicans and the Democrats, McCain and Obama, both were for the bailout TARP, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just universally just corrupt.
There's only one party. There's the big business party. There's the big business war party. Right?
Absolutely.
So they'll make up bones of contention on social issues. So stuff that doesn't affect Goldman Sachs profits or Lockheed Martin's profits or Monsanto profits. If there's anything like that doesn't affect big business profits, they then create an argument about it. So there's abortion in there, and there's women's rights, and there's gay rights, and there's religious freedom or religious not freedom, or whether you're an atheist or whatever. They do it on social issues, don't they? Social issues don't affect Goldman Sachs profits, do they? Goldman Sachs couldn't care less whether America legalizes abortion or criminalizes abortion. They couldn't care less, could they? What difference does it make to Goldman Sachs? Oh, you want to take a 10 billion government subsidy away? Whoa, we can't have that. We'll bribe more politicians to stop it.
Absolutely. And I mean, look at the TPP and all of the efforts to get that through. It's just the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Meanwhile, we're arguing about basically team colors, and it's just, red versus blue.
Two NFL teams or Manchester United supporters versus Manchester City supporters in the UK, or Liverpool against Everton. There must be stuff in the same thing in New Zealand, where Auckland against Wellington or something would be in rugby, is it?
I believe so, yeah. In Australian football, yes. But I've heard, from what I've heard, the kind of football team loyalty in the UK is definitely like as heated as American politics. But
you support one team, and that team can do no wrong whatsoever, and the other team are god awful bastards.
Absolutely.
And that's how they do it. They do a total partisan things on things that are not monetary issues. Not monetary issues. They don't affect the profits of big banks. They don't affect the money supply, the Federal Reserve private banking system, and they don't affect the arms companies' profits, and they don't affect the banks' profits and, you know, oil company profits and whatever else. They don't affect.
Absolutely. Well, we've got about 2 minutes left in this little half-hour segment. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of cover or talk about, just as far as WikiLeaks and Julian is concerned, or any other thoughts?
I would ask everybody to try and tell new people about his predicament and about how much the mainstream media lies. So if everybody who currently supports Julian Assange got 3 more people to support Julian Assange, that would make a massive difference to his case. You can talk to your friends, your relationships, your relations, your work colleagues, whatever, whoever you know, talk to them about the predicament. He's been cleared of all charges. He's got some stupid skipping bail thing that ought to be dropped, and they should just let him out and let him fly wherever, to Ecuador or wherever he wants to go to. Let 3 more people know. If you can let 3 more people know, if everybody did that, that would be a hell of a lot more people, a hell of a lot more pressure on the UK government and the media and whatever. So that's what we've got to do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ian, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. I'm really glad that I've gotten to speak with you in this vigil, because I know you've been on previously and I haven't had the chance to interview you. So thank you for being here and for kind of just giving your perspective as somebody who's been so misrepresented in the legacy press on all of this. So
it's great talking to you. Brilliant.